The garage smelled of oil and dust, a familiar musk that clung to my clothes as I fumbled with a wrench, pretending I knew what I was doing. My heart was already racing when I heard the creak of the side door, and then Caleb's shadow fell across the concrete floor. I froze, because something in the way he stood, too close, too still, told me this wasn't about fixing Dad's old Mustang. I was 19, scrawny, and perpetually out of place in this sprawling Virginia suburb where my mom and I had landed after her remarriage. Caleb, my stepbrother, was the opposite. 21, broad-shouldered, the kind of guy who could command a room with a grin or a glare. We'd been living under the same roof for 2 years, but we were strangers bound by family dinners and awkward silences. He was the star of his college lacrosse team, the guy with a girlfriend who looked like she stepped out of a magazine. I was just Elliot, the quiet kid who'd rather sketch in a notebook than throw a ball. That afternoon, I was alone in the garage, tinkering with the car to avoid Mom's questions about college applications. The radio hummed a soft country tune, and I was lost in the rhythm of it when Caleb stormed in, his boots heavy on the floor. "Elliot," he said, his voice low, almost a growl. I turned, and his blue eyes locked onto mine, burning with something I couldn't name. He stepped closer, close enough that I could smell the faint cedar of his cologne, and my pulse tripped over itself. "What's up?" I managed, my voice cracking like I was 13 again. I gripped the wrench tighter, as if it could anchor me. Caleb didn't answer right away. He just stood there, his jaw tight, his hands flexing at his sides like he was wrestling with something bigger than both of us. "I need to talk to you," he said finally, his voice quieter now, but no less intense. "And you're not leaving this garage until I'm done." I laughed nervously, thinking it was a joke, but his expression didn't crack. The air between us thickened, and I felt the weight of it press against my chest. I'd always known Caleb was straight, painfully, obviously straight. So why was he looking at me like I was the only person in the world? The garage felt smaller, the walls closing in as he took another step. I backed up, my hip bumping the workbench, tools clattering softly. "Caleb, what's this about?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He didn't answer with words. Instead, he reached out, his hand hovering near my arm, not quite touching, like he was afraid of what would happen if he did. "I've been watching you," he said, and the confession hit me like a punch. "Not just today, for months. The way you move, the way you exist. It's driving me crazy, Elliot." My breath caught. This was Caleb, my stepbrother, the guy who'd never once looked at me like I was anything more than an inconvenience. And now he was standing here, unraveling, his words spilling out like they'd been trapped for too long. I wanted to run, to laugh it off, to tell him he was insane. But I couldn't move. His eyes held me, raw and searching, and I realized I'd been watching him too. His easy confidence, his quiet strength, the way he filled a room without trying. "Caleb, you're straight," I said, the words sounding hollow even to me. "You've got Mia. You've got everything." He shook his head, a sharp, almost angry motion. "You think I don't know that? You think I wanted this?" His voice broke, and he stepped even closer, his hand finally landing on my arm, warm and firm. "I don't know what this is, Elliot, but I can't keep pretending it's not there." The world tilted. My mind raced, replaying every moment we'd shared, late-night talks in the kitchen, the times he'd lingered too long when passing me in the hall. Had I missed something? Or had I seen it and refused to believe it? My heart pounded, torn between fear and a dangerous spark of hope. This was wrong, wasn't it? He was my stepbrother. He was straight. And yet, here we were, standing in Dad's garage, the line between us blurring with every second. "I'm not like you," he said, his voice barely audible now. I don't know how to do this, but I need you to hear me." I swallowed hard, my throat dry. "Hear what?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he dropped to his knees, right there on the cold concrete, his hands resting on his thighs like he was surrendering. His eyes never left mine, and in them, I saw a storm. Fear, longing, shame, and something fiercer, something that looked like love. I'm scared, he whispered. But I'm more scared of losing you before I even figure this out. The radio played on, oblivious to the earthquake in my chest. I didn't know what to say, what to do. All I knew was that Caleb, the guy I'd spent 2 years trying not to want, was on his knees in front of me, and nothing would ever be the same. I stood frozen, the wrench slipping from my hand and clattering onto the workbench. Caleb's words hung in the air, heavy and impossible, like a dream I wasn't supposed to have. His knees pressed into the gritty garage floor, and his eyes, those piercing blue eyes, held me captive, pleading for something I wasn't sure I could give. "Get up," I said, my voice shaking. "Caleb, you can't just say that and expect me to know what to do." My heart was a riot, pounding against my ribs, screaming at me to run and stay all at once. I wanted to believe him, to let myself fall into whatever this was, but the weight of who we were, stepbrothers, family, crushed that hope like a vice. He didn't move. "I'm not going anywhere until you listen," he said, his voice steady now, like he'd crossed some invisible line and there was no turning back. "I've been fighting this for months, Elliot. Every time you're around, it's like I can't breathe right. I don't know what it means, but I know it's real." I took a step back, my sneakers scuffing against the concrete. The garage was too small, too hot, despite the open door letting in the late summer breeze. Outside, the world carried on, kids laughing in the cul-de-sac, a lawnmower droning in the distance. But in here, it was just us, trapped in a moment that could ruin everything. "Caleb, you're not gay," I said, the word sharp, meant to cut through whatever this was. "You've got Mia. You've got a life that doesn't include this." I gestured vaguely between us, my hands trembling. "You're just confused or something." His jaw tightened, and for a moment, I thought he'd get angry, storm out, and we'd pretend this never happened. But instead, he rose slowly, his height towering over me, and stepped closer until I could feel the heat of him. "Don't tell me what I am," he said, his voice low and fierce. "I'm not saying I have all the answers, but I know what I feel when I look at you." My breath hitched. I wanted to argue, to push him away, to protect myself from the chaos he was unleashing. But his words stirred something deep, something I'd buried under layers of self-doubt and fear. I'd known I was gay since I was 14, but I'd never told anyone, not even Mom. Living in this house, with Caleb's easy charm and perfect life, had only made me feel smaller, less deserving. And now here he was, tearing down every wall I'd built. "What about Mia?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "What about Dad and Mom? What about everything?" He flinched, like the question physically hurt him. "Mia and I, it's not what you think," he said, running a hand through his dark blonde hair. "I care about her, but it's not like this." He gestured between us, mirroring my earlier motion, and the honesty in his eyes made my chest ache. I turned away, staring at the Mustang's rusted fender, trying to ground myself. "This is crazy, Caleb. We can't do this. You're my stepbrother. If anyone finds out." "No one has to know," he cut in, his voice urgent. "Not yet. I need you to know I'm not playing games. I'm not messing with you, Elliot. This is real." I laughed, a bitter sound that echoed in the garage. "Real? You think this is real? You're straight, Caleb. You've got a girlfriend, a scholarship, a future. I'm the weird kid who draws and doesn't fit in. You don't get to just decide you're into me because you're having some crisis." His face fell, and for a moment, I thought I'd pushed him too far. But then he reached out, his hand grazing my shoulder, and the touch sent a jolt through me. "You're not just anything," he said softly. "You're the only person who makes me feel like I'm not just going through the motions. I see you, Elliot. I've always seen you." The words hit harder than I expected, cracking something open inside me. I wanted to believe him, to let myself fall into the possibility of us, but the risks loomed like storm clouds. Our parents, our friends, the small-town gossip that could tear us apart. What would happen if we crossed this line? "Caleb, we can't," I said, but my voice lacked conviction. His hand stayed on my shoulder, warm and steady, and I didn't pull away. "Then tell me you don't feel it." he said, his voice almost a challenge. Look me in the eyes and tell me you don't want this. I couldn't. My gaze dropped to the floor, my heart racing as the truth clawed its way out. I'd wanted him for longer than I'd ever admit, even to myself. Every glance, every accidental brush of his arm against mine had been a quiet torment. But wanting him didn't make this right. I don't know what I feel. I lied, stepping back, breaking the contact. I need time, Caleb. It's too much. He nodded, his expression a mix of relief and frustration. Okay, he said. I'll wait. But I'm not going anywhere, Elliot. Not until you tell me to. The garage door rattled as a breeze swept through, and I felt the weight of his promise settle over me. I didn't know what came next, but I knew one thing. Caleb had changed everything, and there was no going back. The next few days were a blur of avoidance and stolen glances. I buried myself in my sketchbook, filling pages with jagged lines and shadowed faces that looked too much like Caleb. Every time I heard his footsteps in the house, my heart lurched, and I'd find an excuse to slip away, out to the backyard, into my room, anywhere but near him. But the garage haunted me, its memory a live wire in my mind. Caleb didn't push, but he didn't disappear either. He was there at breakfast, pouring cereal with a quiet intensity, his eyes catching mine when Mom and Dad weren't looking. He was there in the evenings, sprawled on the couch watching football, his presence filling the room like a storm about to break. I hated how much I noticed him, his calloused hands, the way his t-shirt clung to his shoulders, the soft curve of his mouth when he thought no one was watching. By Wednesday, I couldn't take it anymore. I needed air, space, anything to clear my head. I grabbed my bike and rode to the edge of town, where the suburbs gave way to a scrappy park with a half-dead oak tree and a bench overlooking a dry creek bed. I sat there, sketching the gnarled branches, trying to lose myself in the lines. But Caleb's words kept echoing. I see you, Elliot. I've always seen you. What did that even mean? Was he serious? Or was this some fleeting experiment, a way to test the waters before he went back to his perfect life with Mia? I'd seen them together at school events, her arm looped through his, her laughter bright and easy. They were the golden couple, the kind everyone envied. And I was just me, the kid who'd never kissed anyone, who'd spent high school hiding in the art room, too afraid to admit who I was. My pencil snapped, the lead smearing across the page. I cursed under my breath, tossing the broken pieces into the grass. That's when I heard the crunch of gravel behind me. Thought I'd find you here, Caleb said, his voice soft but unmistakable. I turned, and there he was, leaning against his bike, his lacrosse jacket slung over one shoulder. The setting sun cast a warm glow across his face, softening the hard lines of his jaw. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept any better than I had. What do you want, Caleb? I asked, my voice sharper than I meant. I stood, shoving my sketchbook into my backpack, ready to bolt. I told you I'd give you time, he said, stepping closer. But I didn't say I'd stop trying. He held up his hands, like he was approaching a skittish animal. I just want to talk, Elliot. No pressure. I laughed, a dry, humorless sound. No pressure? You dropped a bomb in the garage, and now you're acting like we can just chat. He winced, but didn't back down. I know I messed up, coming at you like that. I didn't plan it. It just happened. He ran a hand through his hair, a nervous habit I'd noticed more and more. I've been trying to figure this out, and I'm not good at it. But I meant what I said. I crossed my arms, my defenses up. What? That you're suddenly into me. That you're throwing away your whole life for somewhat. A crush. It's not a crush, he said, his voice firm. It's more than that. I don't know how to explain it, but it's like you're in my head all the time. I see you drawing or laughing at one of Dad's dumb jokes, and it hits me like a freight train. I don't know what I'm doing, Elliot, but I know I don't want to lose you. His honesty disarmed me, and for a moment, I couldn't find words. I wanted to believe him, to let myself imagine a world where this could work. But the fear was louder. Fear of rejection, of judgment, of breaking our family apart. Caleb, you don't get it, I said, my voice cracking. I've spent my whole life hiding who I am. I've never told anyone I'm gay, not even Mom. And now you're asking me to what? Risk everything for something you're not even sure about. He stepped closer, his eyes searching mine. I'm sure about you, he said. I don't have all the answers, but I know I've never felt like this before. Not with Mia, not with anyone. The mention of Mia stung, a reminder of the life he was supposed to have. What about her? I asked. You're just going to break up with her? Tell her you're what? Bi? Gay? Or is this just a secret you're going to keep from everyone? He looked away, his jaw tight. I don't know yet, he admitted. I haven't figured out how to handle Mia. But I'm not going to lie to you, Elliot. I'm trying to be honest, even if it's messy. Messy didn't begin to cover it. I wanted to scream, to tell him to leave me alone, but the truth was, I didn't want him to go. I wanted him to stay, to keep saying things that made my heart race, even if it terrified me. Let's just take it slow, I said finally, the words feeling like a surrender. No more garage ambushes. Just talk to me. Like normal. He smiled, a small, relieved curve of his lips. I can do that, he said. But I'm not giving up on you, Elliot. As he biked away, the sun dipping below the horizon, I felt a spark of something dangerous, hope. And I wasn't sure if it would save me or destroy me. The weeks that followed were a tightrope walk. Caleb kept his promise. No more ambushes. No more heavy confessions in cramped spaces. Instead, he was just there. He'd sit across from me at dinner, asking about my day with a sincerity that made Mom raise an eyebrow. He'd linger in the living room when I was sketching, commenting on my drawings with a quiet awe that made my cheeks burn. It was subtle, careful, but every moment felt charged, like we were circling something neither of us could name. I tried to keep my distance, to protect myself, but Caleb had a way of slipping past my defenses. One night, he found me in the backyard, sprawled on a blanket under the stars, my sketchbook open to a half-finished drawing of the constellation Orion. You're gonna get eaten by mosquitoes out here, he said, dropping down beside me without an invitation. Maybe I like mosquitoes, I shot back, but there was no heat in it. He grinned, his shoulder brushing mine, and I didn't pull away. We sat in silence for a while, the crickets filling the gaps, and I let myself imagine, just for a moment, that this could be normal. Us, together, without the weight of the world pressing down. You're good at this, he said, nodding at my sketchbook. The way you see things, it's like you're pulling them apart and putting them back together better. I snorted, embarrassed. It's just drawing. It's not just anything, he said, echoing his words from the garage. You've got something, Elliot. You make people feel things. I looked at him, his face half lit by the moonlight, and my heart did that stupid flip again. What do you feel? I asked, the question slipping out before I could stop it. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he lay back on the blanket, his hands behind his head, staring up at the stars. I feel like I've been asleep my whole life, he said finally. And then you showed up, and now I'm awake, and it's a lot. My throat tightened. I wanted to tell him I felt the same, that he'd shaken me out of my own numbness, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I lay down beside him, our shoulders inches apart, and we watched the stars in silence. For the first time, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, this could be real. But reality came crashing back the next day. I was at the kitchen table, sketching, when Mia walked in, her blonde hair pulled into a messy bun, her smile as bright as ever. She was looking for Caleb, who'd gone to the gym, and she stayed to chat, oblivious to the storm in my head. You're so talented, Elliot, she said, peering at my sketchbook. Caleb's always talking about your art. I froze, my pencil hovering over the page. He does. Oh yeah, she said, laughing. He's like, Elliot's gonna be famous someday. He's proud of you, you know. Her words twisted something in my chest. Proud. Was that what this was? Or was Caleb hiding behind easy compliments, keeping me at arm's length while he figured out his feelings? I mumbled a thanks and excused myself, retreating to my room, where I could breathe without her kindness suffocating me. That night, I confronted Caleb in the hallway, away from Mom and Dad's ears. "What's the deal with Mia?" I asked, my voice low but sharp. "You're still with her, acting like everything's fine, while you're what? Flirting with me?" He looked caught, his eyes darting to the floor. "I'm not flirting," he said, but it sounded weak. "I'm trying to figure this out, Elliot. Mia, she's part of my life, but it's not the same as what I feel for you." "Then end it," I said, the words spilling out before I could stop them. "If you're serious about this, about us, then you can't keep her in the dark. It's not fair to her, or to me." He nodded, his expression grim. "You're right," he said. "I'll talk to her. I need to do it right." I wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at me. What if he couldn't let her go? What if this was all a mistake, a fleeting moment of confusion that would leave me broken? I didn't say any of that. Instead, I nodded and walked away, my heart heavy with the weight of what we were risking. The next day, I saw Caleb and Mia in the driveway, their voices low, her face tight with emotion. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but the way she hugged herself, the way he kept his hands in his pockets, told me enough. When she drove away, Caleb looked up at the house, his eyes finding mine through the window. He didn't smile, but there was a resolve in his gaze that made my pulse race. He'd done it. He'd ended things with Mia. And now, there was no going back. The house felt different after Caleb's breakup with Mia. The air was heavier, like everyone could sense the shift, but didn't know why. Mom asked Caleb if he was okay, her voice laced with concern, but he just shrugged and said he needed space. I kept my head down, avoiding her probing looks, terrified she'd see right through me. Caleb and I didn't talk about it at first. We moved around each other carefully, like we were handling something fragile. But the tension was unbearable, a constant hum beneath every interaction. I'd catch him watching me when I was reading, or he'd brush past me in the kitchen, his hand lingering a second too long. It was maddening, exhilarating, and I didn't know how much longer I could stand it. One evening, after Mom and Dad went out for dinner, Caleb found me in the garage again. I was tinkering with the Mustang, more out of habit than purpose, when he walked in, closing the door behind him. The click of the latch felt final, like we were sealing ourselves off from the world. "You've been avoiding me," he said, his voice quiet but direct. I set down the socket wrench, my hands shaking. "I'm not avoiding you," I lied. "I'm just trying to figure this out." He stepped closer, his boots scuffing the concrete. "I broke up with Mia," he said. "I told her I needed to figure myself out. She didn't take it well, but she deserved the truth." I nodded, my throat tight. "What's the truth, Caleb? What are we doing here?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached out, his fingers brushing mine, and the contact sent a shiver through me. "I don't know what we're doing," he admitted, "but I know I want to be here, with you." My heart pounded, torn between fear and longing. I wanted to believe him, to let myself fall, but the risks were still there, looming like shadows. What if this ruins everything? I asked. Our family, our lives, what if we can't come back from this? He stepped closer, his hand cupping my cheek, his touch gentle but firm. "I'm willing to take that risk," he said. "Are you?" I didn't know if I was. But before I could answer, he leaned in, his lips brushing mine, tentative at first, then deeper, like he was pouring everything he couldn't say into that kiss. It was soft and desperate, sweet and terrifying, and I kissed him back, my hands gripping his shirt, anchoring myself to him. When we pulled apart, both of us were breathing hard, our foreheads pressed together. "This doesn't fix everything," I said, my voice shaky. "We can't just pretend it's simple." "I know," he said, his thumb tracing my jaw. "But I'm not going anywhere, Elliot. Not unless you tell me to." We stood there, wrapped in each other, the garage a cocoon around us. For the first time, I let myself imagine a future where this could work, where we could be more than stepbrothers, more than a secret. But the world outside was still waiting, and I knew it wouldn't be kind. The next day, I overheard Mom talking to Dad in the kitchen, her voice low and worried. "Caleb's been acting strange," she said. "And Elliot, he's so quiet lately. Do you think something's going on?" My stomach dropped. I slipped out before they could see me, my mind racing. Were we that obvious? Could they sense the shift, the way Caleb and I orbited each other now? I wanted to tell Caleb we had to be more careful, but every time I saw him, my resolve crumbled. His smile, his touch, the way he looked at me like I was the only thing that mattered. It was addictive, and I was already hooked. That weekend, Caleb suggested we get out of the house, away from the suffocating tension. We drove to a hiking trail an hour away, a place where no one knew us, where we could just be. The trail wound through dense forest, the air cool and sharp with pine. We walked side by side, our hands brushing occasionally, and for a few hours, it felt like we were the only two people in the world. "I've never done this before," Caleb said as we sat on a rocky outcrop, the valley sprawling below us. "Not just this." He gestured between us, "but feeling like I can be myself. With you, I don't have to pretend." I looked at him, his face open and unguarded, and my heart ached. "I'm scared," I admitted. "I want this, but I'm scared of what it'll cost." He took my hand, his grip steady. "We'll figure it out," he said. "Together." I wanted to believe him, but the fear lingered, a shadow we couldn't outrun. As we hiked back, the weight of reality settled over me again. We weren't just two guys falling for each other. We were stepbrothers, and the world wouldn't let us forget it. The secret grew heavier with every stolen moment. Caleb and I found ways to be together. Late-night drives, quiet corners of the library, the garage when Mom and Dad were asleep. Each touch, each whispered conversation, felt like a rebellion against the world, but it also felt like home. I'd never known what it was to be wanted like this, to be seen so completely. But the fear never left, a constant hum beneath the joy. One night, we were in my room, the door locked, the radio playing softly to mask our voices. Caleb was sprawled on my bed, his head propped on one hand, watching me sketch. "You're beautiful when you draw," he said, his voice low, and I laughed, embarrassed but secretly thrilled. "Stop," I said, but I didn't mean it. He reached for my hand, pulling me down beside him, and we kissed, slow and unhurried, like we had all the time in the world. But we didn't. The clock was always ticking, and I could feel it in my bones. The next morning, disaster struck. Mom found a note I'd written to Caleb, tucked into my sketchbook, a stupid, reckless thing I'd scribbled late at night, full of words I hadn't dared say out loud. I'd meant to burn it, but I'd fallen asleep, and now it was in her hands, her face pale as she stood in the kitchen. "Elliot," she said, her voice trembling, "what is this?" I froze, my heart plummeting. Caleb was at practice, oblivious, and I was alone, facing the storm. "It's nothing," I lied, but my voice cracked, betraying me. "Nothing." She held up the note, her eyes wide with hurt and confusion. "This says you love him. Caleb, your stepbrother." The word hung in the air, sharp and accusing. I wanted to disappear, to rewind time and erase every careless moment. "Mom, it's not as complicated," I stammered, but she wasn't listening. "How long has this been going on?" she asked, her voice rising. "Elliot, do you have any idea what this could do to our family?" I couldn't answer. Tears stung my eyes, and I bolted, grabbing my jacket and running out the back door. I didn't stop until I reached the park, the same bench where Caleb had found me weeks ago. I sat there, my head in my hands, trying to breathe through the panic. She knew, and everything was falling apart. Caleb found me an hour later, his face tight with worry. "Mom called me," he said, sitting beside me. "She's freaking out, Elliot. She told Dad." I looked at him, my vision blurred with tears. "What do we do?" I asked, my voice small. "They're going to hate us." He took my hand, his grip fierce. "They don't hate you," he said. "They're just shocked. We'll talk to them. Together." I shook my head, pulling away. "You don't get it, Caleb. This isn't just about them being shocked. It's about me. I've never told them I'm gay. I've never told anyone. And now they know, and it's because of us, and I don't know if I can do this." He looked stricken, like I'd slapped him. "Don't say that," he said. We're in this together, Elliot. I'm not letting you go. But I was already spiraling, the weight of everything crashing down. You don't know what it's like, I said, my voice breaking. You're the golden boy. You can walk away from this and be fine. I'm the one who's going to lose everything. He grabbed my shoulders, forcing me to look at him. I'm not walking away, he said, his voice fierce. I love you, Elliot. I don't care what it costs. I'm not losing you. The words stopped me cold. Love. He'd said it, clear and unflinching, and it broke something open inside me. I wanted to believe him, to hold on to this fragile, beautiful thing we'd built. But the fear was still there, louder than ever. We went home together, our hands brushing but not quite touching. Mom and Dad were waiting, their faces a mix of anger and heartbreak. The conversation was a blur, raised voices, tears, accusations. Mom kept saying it was wrong, that we were family, that we couldn't do this. Dad was quieter, his disappointment heavier than her anger. Caleb tried to explain, to tell them it wasn't a choice, that we loved each other, but the words only seemed to make it worse. By the end, they didn't kick us out, but the house felt like a minefield. Mom said we needed time, that we'd talk more later, but her eyes said she didn't know how to fix this. Caleb and I retreated to our separate rooms, the distance between us feeling wider than ever. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if love was worth this kind of pain. But then I thought of Caleb's hand in mine, his voice saying he loved me, and I knew I couldn't let go. Not yet. The days after the confrontation were a quiet kind of chaos. Mom and Dad didn't bring it up again, but their silence was louder than words. Meals were tense, with forced small talk and eyes that didn't meet. Caleb and I stole moments when we could, a brush of hands in the hallway, a whispered conversation in the dark, but the weight of our secret pressed harder than ever. I started spending more time at the community college's art studio, losing myself in charcoal and canvas. It was the only place I could breathe, where I could pour out the confusion and longing without fear of judgment. My latest piece was a storm of blues and grays, two figures reaching for each other across a fractured sky. I didn't need to explain it to myself. It was us, Caleb and me, caught in a moment we couldn't escape. One afternoon, Caleb showed up at the studio, his lacrosse bag slung over his shoulder. You've been hiding, he said, his voice teasing but his eyes serious. I'm not hiding, I said, wiping charcoal from my hands. I'm just processing. He stepped closer, glancing at my canvas. That's us, isn't it? He asked, his voice soft. I nodded, unable to meet his eyes. He reached out, his fingers grazing my wrist, and the touch was enough to make my heart race. I miss you, he said, even when you're right here. I wanted to tell him I missed him too, that I was terrified of losing him, but the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I leaned into his touch, letting myself feel the warmth of him, just for a moment. We can't keep doing this, I said finally, sneaking around, pretending everything's fine. It's going to break us. He nodded, his jaw tight. I know, he said, but I'm not giving up. I talked to a counselor at school. There's a support group for people like us. I want us to go. Together. I stared at him, surprised. Caleb, the guy who'd always seemed so sure of himself, was reaching out for help. For us. You do that? I asked. For you? Yeah, he said, his smile small but real. For us. The support group was in a small community center across town, a nondescript room with folding chairs and a coffee maker that smelled like it had been brewing since the 90s. The people there were a mix, young, old, queer, questioning. And for the first time, I felt like I wasn't alone. Caleb sat beside me, his knee pressed against mine, and when it was my turn to speak, I told them about us. Not everything, but enough. The words felt like a release, like I was finally letting myself be seen. Caleb spoke too, his voice steady but raw. He talked about the confusion, the fear, the way loving me had turned his world upside down. The group listened, nodded, shared their own stories. By the end, I felt lighter, like we'd found a lifeline in the chaos. Back home, things didn't magically get better. Mom and Dad were still struggling, their love for us tangled with their discomfort. But they started asking questions, small ones, about how we felt, what we needed. It wasn't acceptance, not yet, but it was a start. One night, Caleb and I sat in the garage, the Mustang gleaming under the fluorescent lights. We'd been working on it together, a quiet project that gave us an excuse to be close. "We're going to be okay," Caleb said, his hand resting on mine. "It's not going to be easy, but we're going to figure it out." I looked at him, his face lit with determination and something softer, something that felt like forever. "I love you," I said, the words slipping out, simple and true. He smiled, leaning in to kiss me, slow and sure. "I love you too," he said. "Always." The road ahead was uncertain, full of challenges we couldn't predict. But in that moment, in the quiet of the garage, I knew we'd face it together. Caleb had changed me, not just by loving me, but by showing me I was worth loving. And that was a truth I'd carry forever.